tend to visualize the same image when we hear the word cult: a remote compound, matching robes, a charismatic leader demanding absolute devotion. To understand how modern coercion actually works, we have to aggressively cross out that religious aesthetic. Researchers who study coercive influence classify these groups by operation rather than belief. A cult is a structural system defined by high control mechanics, undue influence, identity manipulation, and the systematic suppression of critical thought. Sociologist Howard Becker defined the cult as a loosely organized, transient, and highly individualistic organization. It intentionally detaches from established institutional rules and historical traditions. Instead of following a fixed constitution or traditional hierarchy, these groups center on Max Weber's concept of charismatic authority. The entire organization relies on the personality and unilateral dictates of a leader, which effectively overrides any existing rulebook. This structural blueprint powers the multi-level marketing industry, a multi-billion-dollar vector where cultic architecture thrives undetected in the open market. The structure scales further as a downward funnel in the digital world, pulling users into the curated ecosystems of algorithmic social media. At the highest level of social organization, this architecture has reshaped the modern U.S. presidency. Treating the word cult as a literal structural blueprint provides the only precise map of how modern economic and political systems manipulate human behavior. Coercive structures exploit specific biological vulnerabilities. This highlight shows the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or VMPFC. It is the brain center for regulating empathy, moral competence, and fear. Forensic clinical examinations of extremist perpetrators often show significant suppression of the VMPFC. When this area is compromised, an individual loses the biological capacity to integrate human values into their decision-making. Just above it sits the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, or DLPFC. This region governs memory, executive functioning, and logical goal-directed behavior. High-control environments intentionally bypass the DLPFC by flooding a target with intense emotional and social stimuli. These systems create a neural override that shuts down the brain's ability to resist authority logically. Practitioners of coercive influence follow the bite model. They systematically take control of an individual's behavior, information, thought, and emotion to ensure compliance. The process begins with love bombing, an engineered intensity of praise and attention. This hooks a target's commitment before the logical DLPFC can rationally evaluate it. Organizations then deploy a buddy system to create rapid artificial attachment. This ensures continuous personal contact and surveillance, accelerating the target's social isolation from their previous life. To maintain control, the system uses thought-terminating clichés. Catchy, wise-sounding phrases like "doubt your doubts" serve as psychological circuit breakers designed to stop critical questioning on contact. Biological vulnerability is the foundational exploit of any high-control system. If an organization can manipulate the emotional inputs, it can effectively disable the brain's hardware for resistance. We see this psychological playbook applied directly to economics through multi-level marketing. MLMs target specific vulnerabilities, often recruiting millennial mothers seeking both income and community. The pitch promises a carefree lifestyle that leverages and recruits desire for purpose and social connection. The industry weaponizes toxic positivity to control behavior. By demanding constant optimism, the organization frames any valid critique or financial failure as a personal deficiency, never a flaw in the business model. Recruits use attraction marketing to obfuscate the actual brand. They sell a fabricated lifestyle, cooking with family or visiting parks, to lure in new targets without revealing the extractive nature of the company. Information control is enforced by instructing recruits to disassociate from unsupportive family or friends. This cuts off external data points that might contradict the organization's narrative. To complete the trap, MLMs encourage participants to quit their primary jobs. This creates absolute financial dependence, making the family 100% reliant on an ecosystem that dictates their dress, their speech, and their social circle. These organizations operate as fully realized economic cults. They use psychological isolation to trap individuals in a financially extractive, quasi-religious environment where failure is assigned as personal blame. This architecture has been automated on a global scale through digital networks. Platforms like YouTube and TikTok utilize identical coercive loops optimized by mathematics rather than human recruiters. This flowchart shows the phase of algorithmic courtship. A single click triggers the system to begin flooding a user's feed with identical content, rapidly surrounding their digital identity with a single viewpoint. This saturation creates a manufactured consensus. Seeing the same claim repeated makes the brain believe a fringe idea is universally accepted. This builds a systemic filter bubble. Algorithm removes contrasting viewpoints, walling the user off from external data. To maintain time saturation, the algorithms intentionally induce FOMO, or the fear of missing out. This constant state of anxiety and social pressure successfully bypasses the logic-driven DLPFC, maintaining engagement through habit-forming behavior. TikTok users now average 95 minutes a day on the app. This digital schedule packing mirrors a cult strategy of crowding out a recruit's life so they have no time for outside connections. Social media platforms function as automated cult recruitment engines, mathematically optimized for behavioral control and ideological isolation. Max Weber's charismatic authority has found its ultimate expression in the modern U.S. executive branch. Political sectarianism transformed voters into rival sects who view opponents as existential threats. This partisan fear fuels a messianic expectation, transforming the president into a national redeemer. The electorate now demands an extra-constitutional figure who can unilaterally settle divisive issues. This messianic framing encourages the president to bypass traditional rules in favor of charismatic, individualistic power. Under President Obama, we saw the systematic bypassing of the 1973 War Powers Resolution. By redefining hostilities to exclude remote control bombing, the executive branch unilaterally expanded its jurisdiction over war-making. President Trump further eroded structural limits by utilizing emergency powers to secure border wall funding. This was a novel use of emergency claims to bypass the congressional power of the purse during a budget battle. President Biden extended this trend into the realm of information control. His administration engaged in covert efforts to push social media companies to blacklist and shadow ban specific viewpoints regarding the pandemic, directly manipulating the information the public could access. Modern political addresses have adopted the language of thought-stopping control, framing elections as an apocalyptic final battle against forces of chaos. This messianic rhetoric demands absolute devotion while silencing dissent as moral failure. When the executive branch combines rule by decree, systematic information suppression, and messianic thought control, it fulfills every requirement of the BITE model. The modern presidency has evolved into a macro cult that inherently threatens social peace. Whether extracting your capital, monetizing your attention, or securing your vote, these disparate systems rely on the same architecture of isolation and thought-stopping control. Resisting high-control systems requires an actionable intellectual defense, the practice of cognitive triage. First, you must manually diversify your information inputs. This involves aggressively seeking out counter voices and critical sources to prevent the formation of an algorithmic filter bubble. Second, you must demand absolute structural transparency. Before committing time, capital, or political loyalty, verify that the organization welcomes questioning and operates under established rules rather than charismatic whims. Failing to recognize the invisible cultic architecture already built into our daily systems constitutes the primary danger of the modern era. The true threat lies in the quiet mechanics of control that we have integrated into our every interaction.